Ah, recording. There we go. The question, who gave more?
The lady.
That's right.
2 cents.
From the voice out there. Yes, Cynthia, the lady did, because she gave all she had, right? Out of faith. Now that we don't know the rest of the story from that lady, but I would venture to say she was very blessed, right? Not only was she blessed in the fact that the Lord mentioned her in the Word of God, but that's in the Word of God forever, right? That's pretty powerful. And the other guy was told he didn't give much at all, right? Because he came from his expert. So comes from the heart. That's so principle number one, we can't go any further in anything of our finances if we're not putting the Lord first. Good review? Okay. So this is principle number two. And that's the principle of being a financial steward with what we're given, right? Too many times, we just don't do it. And why? Well, number one, we must save, right? You say, well, Jose, you told me that if I tithe, then I don't have to worry about anything because the rest is blessed. Well, that's true. Absolutely. But there's also, not only is there principles that the law has put in, that the Lord has put in place in the Bible, but he also has put laws together, right? Like if you jump off this building, you're going to hurt yourself, right? Law of gravity. Well, there's laws of money too. And that is, if you don't save, you're not going to have something later. Just the way it is, right? And how do we know that? Well, if we turn to Proverbs 6 through 8. Yeah. Give a chance to get there. And this is the proverb of the ant. And here's how it goes. Consider the ways of the ant. That's the title. Go to the ant, thou sluggard. Consider her ways and be wise. For having no guide, overseer, or leader, provideth for me in the summer and gather from me in the harvest. Well, what's that saying? Well, it's saying is that even the ant, takes stuff in the summer, make sure that he has food for the fall, right? Saving. Also, you could call it a plan, right? They're planning for when there's not going to be any food, right? So the thing of being a financial steward, and I'll tell you, this is actually really hard for me. And Tracy will tell you this. Saving is tough for most of us. Because there's three kinds of people when it comes to saving. Those who save, it's just natural for them, right? That's not me. Those who don't think they can save, right? I don't have any money to save. And those who don't think they need to save. That kind of is me. Right? So the next principle that I'll get you started is being a financial steward. Part of it is understanding you got to plan for the future no matter what, right? Whether we don't have tomorrow promise, I get that part of it. So a lot of people, especially Christians, will say, well, I don't need to save. What if I get called by Jesus tomorrow? Right? True. But odds are, in America, you're going to live to about 85. Right? So those three kinds of people. Now, why is that important when it comes to the type of person and say, you've got to know what kind of saver you are? First of all of us can be savers, right? The hard part is just getting started. That is the most difficult part about saving. And Tracy will tell you, she's a saver. Guess who runs the household budget at home in our house? Not the financial guru. Nope. She'll tell you. Why? Because I tend to come from, and part of this is how we're raised or how we deal with money. Philosophies has a lot to do with it in this sense. When I was growing up, my father had money, and he would, as soon as he had money, he would buy a new truck. He would do whatever he can. Now, it wasn't much money, but if he could afford the payment, he's going to go get it. And that's how he taught me, right? So at 16, guess what? I had a new car, right? Now, mind you, I was also living in that car. So not a great decision, right? Not a great decision. So I recognize that from the get-go, I'm not a very good saver But here's the thing is, God is merciful, and he's taught me a lot over the many years that we started the study, like I said, about 17 years ago now. And I've learned that you do have to save. Here's some statistics just for your information. Out of the American public, 22% of them have between 1,000 and 5,000 saved up in the bank right now. 33% have less than 1,000 saved. So that means that over 50%, 55% to be exact, don't even have 5,000 in the bank at all. Now, why is that number significant? If you came to my last lesson, you probably heard this, but the reason it's significant is because the average emergency in America today costs about $5,000. Whether it be, you need 4 tires, your car breaks down, hospital visit. We had a gentleman over there, I was working for Tracy. He cut his finger, he went to the hospital, $1,600, right? So the average emergency is about $5,000. So if you don't even have $5,000 saved up, guess what happens when you do have an emergency? Got to get the credit card out, got to borrow money from friends, family. In other words, it takes you backwards, right? Because you're not saving. So, so there's a lot of us in the boat. 55% of Americans don't have 5,000 saved up right now as we speak. That, by the way, that data was from 2012. So I was like, well, that's too old. I'm going to check it what it is today. It was worse today. I was shocked. I was like, it didn't get any better. It actually got worse. Like, well, that's not good. But that's America. We love to spend. But here's the thing. When it comes to saving, one of the things that I understood is that I'm not a good saver. I need to save, and I know that God wants me to save. So how do you overcome that? Well, that's the difficult part, right? It's about self-control. It's about understanding and believing in what the Lord has said. And the Lord has said, be a good steward of what I give you. And I'll show you in a minute what he does when we do that. But it's all about us, because we're in a society today where I thought it was quick when I was growing up. Today, I'm serious. Oh, I need a new pair of shoes. They're here tomorrow, right? I saw this thing on TV. I really like it. Amazon, 24 hours, you got it, right? I don't have the money. Oh, no big deal, because on Amazon, you can just push a button that says, I'll pay later, right? It's called Affirm. So we live in a society where instant gratification is really the norm. So how do we overcome that? How do we overcome the fact that everybody and their brother has an iPad, an iPod, an iWatch, iHair, iCar, I don't know, right? Everything. I mean, it's just the norm. We think it's the norm, but is that God's norm is the question. I would venture to say it's not, but let's look. One of the things too about saving is that I thought the pastor made a good point this morning. For those that heard it this morning, he said something, and I'm paraphrasing, but he was saying that as Christians, sometimes when we're thinking we're actually doing something, we believe we're actually doing it. You guys catch that this morning? Yeah, that was a great point. It's the same thing with savings. If we believe we're going to save later, we think we're saving now, right? I'm not worried about it right now, Jose. I'll get to when I get to it. So I'm going to be okay, because I'm going to save maybe next month, right after I pay off the credit card, or after whatever. But guess what? If you're not saving, you're not actually doing it. If you're not saving $1, you haven't saved anything, right? So remember that. I thought it was a great point by the pastor. It was for something else, but it hit me like, wow, right? There's many times when I thought, oh yeah, I'm going to save it. I'll get to it. It's in the bank, and then I go to look, and I spent it on a new watch or whatever, right? So being a good steward. Why is this important? Saving. Why is this important? So there's actually, I was talking to Venkat, I think, or Fred, I can't remember this morning. But when I was doing the study, I went to Matthew 25 because it's the story of the talents, which I've read that parable, I don't know, 20, 40, 50, 100 times. And what I didn't realize is there's actually two other parables right before it in the same chapter about the same thing, which is good stewardship, right? So if the Lord is talking about it three times in one chapter, maybe we should listen. Maybe we should pay attention. And here it is. So if you go to Matthew 25, there's a few things, but we'll start it in Luke 19, 24 through 27. Well, the Luke 19 is actually the finish. So let's go to Matthew 25. So I'm going to start at Matthew 25, 14, but one of the things that I find interesting is in this, what I say three times, is because right above that is the story of the virgins, right? The virgins that were waiting for the bridegroom, and there was 10 of them, and 5 of them put their oil away and were waiting for him. The other ones didn't. So when he came, they were out of oil, and then they had to go get oil. So while they went to go get oil, guess what? The groom came by, too late, right? So that's kind of the stories that I want to get through. But 14 is for the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And to one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and another 1. To every man according to his several, and straightway took his journey. Then he had that. Then he that had received the 5 talents went and traded with the same, and made them another 5 talents. And likewise, he that had received 2, he also gained other 2. But he that had only received 1 and digged in the earth, and hid his Lord's money. After a long time, the Lord of those servants cometh and reckoned with them. And he said that he had received 5 talents, came and brought other 5 talents, saying, Lord, thou deliverest unto me 5 talents. Behold, I have gained besides them 5 more talents. His Lord said unto him, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Catch that? Thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things, I will make thee a ruler over many things. Enter thou into joy of thy Lord. He also that had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, thou delivered unto me 2 talents. Behold, I have gained 2 other talents beside them. His Lord said unto him, well done, good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. Enter thou into the joy of the Lord. Then he that had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew that thou art an hard man, reaping where thou hast not sown, and gathering where thou hast not strawed. And I was afraid, and I went and hid thy talent in the earth. Go there hast thou that this is thine. The Lord answered and said unto him, thou wicked and slothful servant, thou knewest that I reap where I sow not, and gather where I have not sown. Thou oughtest honest, therefore have put my money into the exchanges, and then at my coming I should have received mine all with me. Take therefore the talent from him, and give it unto him which hath 10 talents. For unto every one that has shall be given, and he shall have abundance, but from him that he has not shall be taken away even that which he hath. If that she be an apostle, servant, honor, there shall be weeping and gnashing. Well, not only does talk about that in the talents, but before that, in the other verse that we were talking about, which is the parable of the mites, he actually gives I think it's called a mite, is what it is. But anyways, it's when the Lord comes back, he gives them cities for what they do, right? He says, you did great, so you're gonna get a city. Actually, you're gonna get 10 cities. And the other guy says, well, here's what I did. He goes, I'm gonna give you 10 cities. And the last guy did the same thing as one of the talents, where he kept it kind of all to himself. And he says, here's your 1 bag back. And he goes, take it away from him and give it to the other guys, right? What's it all mean? Well, I think that we can take away from this that it's important that we be good stewards with what we are given. And what do I mean by that? Well, we know that we have to be faithful to tithe, and we know that we should be planning for the future, right? And we should be saving for that future. And how are we doing that? Well, if we save for the future through how do you, I guess the thing that I get asked a lot is, well, how do I go about saving? What do I save for? Right? Well, number one, we know the tithe. Number two, I call it pay yourself. You have to take some money and pay yourself. And I think the first goal should be, don't have to be, but the first goal should be to get 3 months worth of wages saved. I say, well, Jose, I make $10,000 a month. That means I got to put away $30,000. I make $3,000 a month. That's $9,000. I don't have savings now. How am I supposed to do that? Right? Well, one of the keys is to budget, right? By the way, I hate budgeting. I probably hate it and despise it. It's like my nemesis. Here's the thing. If you don't know what's going out, you're never going to be able to save. You have to put it on paper. You have to sit down. You have to look at it and really see what you're spending. That's budgeting. And to give you an example, I did actually bring a kind of a budget thing. Now, here's the good news. The good news is, if you came last year, I had this budget sheet that was, it wasn't as good as I'd like it to be. So I went out and I tried to find, through Crown Ministries has a really good one. And I got it out and I printed it and colorful, and it's sitting on my desk at home. So if you come next week, I will have. Anyways, it pretty much breaks this down to somewhat. But one of the things that I wanted to cover is that you can see here is that emergency 3 months is the first thing. The second thing a lot of people like to save for is obviously for a house. I love it when my sister called me. She said, hey, Jose, can I get some advice from you? Sure, sis, what's up? Well, I'm thinking about buying a house, and I just want to know what you think. I said, great. You're going to buy a house. Fantastic. It's about time. I said, how much do you have saved up? Well, nothing. Okay. Well, how much are you going to start putting away for a house? Well, nothing. Okay. Well, how are you supposed to buy a house? Well, no, my friend said I don't have to put anything down. If you can't save for a down payment, you can't afford the house you're going to buy. Period. Right? Because how many people here are homeowners? A lot of us, right? I'm not actually living in an apartment. But guess what? It's not just the mortgage. It's mortgage insurance, right? It's repairs, taxes. Because here in Texas, they love their taxes on the homes, right? No state tax, but boy, we're gonna get your property, right? So you have to remember that. So when budgeting, here's what I would say. If you're a couple, if you're single or an individual, be honest with yourself. Take the sheet that I'll bring in next week, go through it, fill it out, and really look at what you're spending. If you really want to do it well, get a little notebook and write down everything you spend every day for 30 days. You are going to have a heart attack. I'm telling you right now. Because when you look down, you say, 25 lattes? $3.50 a piece? That adds up, right? I'm not saying don't get lattes, if that's what your thing is. But I think you have to try to look at it and say, okay, the Lord gave me this much. How am I really using it? Right? Because one of the things that the devil likes to do is like to tell you in the back of your little ear, you don't have enough to give to the church. You don't have enough to help that guy on the street. You don't have enough to buy a Bible for a friend. That's what he likes to do. And when we're not good stewards, guess what? We start to believe that, right? So very, very important that tithe, pay yourself first. Now, one of the things that people tell me all the time is like, well, Jose, I can't pay my bills now. How am I supposed to save? I would say if you don't start saving, you'll never be able to pay your bills. By the way, in court, as far as I know, during even bankruptcy, the courts allow for you to save some money, right? Because they know that if you don't save anything, you're never going to get out of trouble, right? So here's what I would say. I would say start, preferably 10%, but start with whatever you can. Start with that goal to get to 3 months of emergency money. Start with a goal with 1 month of emergency money, right? Because here's the thing is that when we're tied to money and we don't have it and we can't use it properly, the devil kind of gets at us, right? Like, how could I possibly quit this job? I don't have any money in the bank, right? I can't go help at the church because no money in the bank, right? Freedom in finances comes from having enough to do what you really want to do. But you can't do that if you're spending every penny, right? It's not possible. So very, very important that you target yourself. And I would say here, because I've heard this question before, asked me, well, how much should I start with, right? And that's what we all do. $5, $10, $100, $200, whatever you're going to stick to. Tithe, savings, pay the bills, right? Whatever you can stick to. And as a couple, you should agree on that, right? Tracy and I get together at the end of the year and we kind of try to put a plan together as to how much we're going to save for that year. What's our goal, right? Sometimes we stick to it, sometimes not so much, right? But it's very, very important that you start putting some money away besides everything else that you're spending. How many people in here say they're savers? Not me. I can tell you right now, I'm not, right? So if we go back to so pay yourself emergency fund, cover that. So one of the things that that's super important about, let's say, the emergency fund, for example, right? And budgeting as a whole. Let's go to budgeting for a whole. One of the things that I don't want you to do when it comes to budgeting, and it's very important that you list everything, okay? Even entertainment, even food that you're buying, all that. If you can just for at least 30 days mark down everything you do, you'll see why there's no savings or how you can do savings, one or the other. But one of the things that's gonna, I think, surprise you if you really get down and do this is where you can save, right? When you start saying, well, yeah, I had 35 lattes last month. Maybe I could do 10, right? But here's really important as couples, and there's several other couples in here, you have to do it together. It will not work if one is doing it and the other one's not. I've seen it time and time and time again. I don't know if it's a biblical truth or not. I think it is, right? We should be coinciding with our spouse. But if you both aren't on the same page, your finances will never work. That I assure you, right? What do I mean by that? Well, you have to agree on the budget. You have to agree on the savings, and you have to agree on what you're saving for, right? I've actually had couples in my office fight, literally fight, emotionally calling each other every name in the book because one wanted a house and the other wanted a new truck. Guess which was which? Right? And what I say, this is what I said to them. It doesn't matter which one you pick, but you got to pick one. And they were broke. They weren't saving. They had some money in a 401k because of where it worked. But what they did is they took it to heart. They went home. They prayed about it. And they came back and I said, don't come back to me until you agree on something. I don't care what it is, just agree on something. And they did. They came back a couple weeks later. And they said, you're right. We don't need another big house. We don't even need another truck. We're fine where we are. We need to get together and start saving towards our retirement and towards the kids' college and some other things that I think are more important. But they finally agreed after, like, they've been at it for like 10 years arguing this because they've been clients for a while. And they've been arguing about this one thing for like a decade. And I just saw him September, gave me a big hug, said thank you for putting us in the right direction. They have $500,000 saved up. They're now going to be selling their house and moving to another area. The kids are through college. They've done it all in the last 7 years. Why? Well, one, they're Christian. They did put the Lord first. Two, they actually listened, which, believe it or not, sometimes, you know, people don't, no matter what we advise them on. So I would tell you that if you're going to be honest with yourself, if you're going to really do financial stewardship when it comes to budgeting, which I hate, right? You have to sit down together, away from everything else, no kids, no nothing. And you really have to look at what you're spending. And then you have to really look at how much you're going to be saving. And then you have to really look at what that savings is for. Now, initially, it could be just, hey, we just want to save 3 months with the emergency money. I think that's a good goal to have, even if it's 1 month. All right. Because what's that do? Not only does it put some money in the bank, but it gives you peace of mind that if something goes wrong, guess what? Right? You have 3 months in the bank and you get fired tomorrow. I'm not saying you will. Hey, well, right? Now I don't have to go work at McDonald's, right? I got 3 months worth of savings. I can take my time. I can get another job. That's what saving allows you, right? That's why if we go through more of the parables we'll go through here in a second, is that the Lord knows this, and he knows that if we're not stewards, we're not going to get anywhere. We're just going to be, you know, Satan's going to have the rap on us because we're so scared of spending any money, or just going deeper and deeper in debt. By the way, we will talk about debt next week. So for kind of give you a heads up for next week. So on the parable also, something that's really, really important about the parable is what happened when the steward wasn't good with the talent. Was taken away, huh? Think about that for a second. The Lord gives you something, and you're not a good steward of it. What's he say is going to happen? Is he going to give you more? It's like, hey, way to go. Right? No, it's not what it says. What he says is he gives more to those who are good stewards, and he takes away from the ones that aren't. Kind of opposite of our political parties today, right? In other words, he is saying to you, I'm going to give you X. It's going to be blessed, be tithe. And the other 90%, you got to use wisely, right? And part of that wisdom is putting away a little bit in savings, just like the ant, right? We talk about, I'm a wealth manager. A lot of guys, everybody here knows, I think that I'm a financial manager. I manage a lot of money for different clients. But guess what? I don't make my clients rich. They don't come to me because they want to get rich. They come to me because they've saved. They've saved enough to put away so that they can have retirement. And it's my job to help it grow or protect it. But it's not my job to make them rich. I've had people come to me, hey, I got 5,000. Can you make me a millionaire? No. Right? So if you seek wealth, I'm telling you right now, if that's one of your goals, it's not going to happen without savings. If you seek financial freedom so that you're not strapped, not going to happen without savings. Just isn't. No matter how many great ideas you have, no matter how many jobs you have, no matter how much you make. So there's an old story from Warren Buffett. He was asked, and some of us are Warren Buffett fans, some of us aren't. But he was kind of asked, what do you think the average American can spend before they can start saving and not overspending from their income? Anybody guess what that number was? In other words, as most Americans, he was asked, how much do you think they need to have before they really start saving and don't need to spend more than what they're making? Guess it? 800,000. And when I heard that number, I was like, oh, come on. But guess what? 800,000, especially living in California, that's only 400,000 in the bank anyways, after taxes, right? Buy $1 million house, you have a couple of cars, a couple of kids in college, you can spend 800,000 easily, right? So part of savings is what I'm getting at here is that the Lord wants us to be good stewards. And you guys have all heard this, live within your means, right? Live within your means. And that's really, really important is that if we get X, that's all we have. We got to make sure we get it tithe, saved, pay the bills. And if you do that over time, not tomorrow, not in a week, over many years, things will improve. Things will get better. I'm a perfect example. I said it last week, I've been broke twice in my life. When I was 16, I was living in a car. No education, dropped out of high school, right? Now here we are. Things have gotten better, I think, right? But I wasn't going to say this, but I'm going to say it for the young people. And there are young people in here. Two of the most important decisions you can make in your life. Number one, have Jesus Christ in your heart. Turn your life over to Christ. You'll never regret it. Number two, find a good spouse. I'm telling you right now, it'll change your life. If you get a spender spouse, that's trouble. That's me, by the way. I'm trouble for my wonderful wife, Tracy. She has to pull me back sometimes, right? But I think that if you can, if you only learn one thing tonight is that get Christ in your heart, look for a good spouse. And what I mean by that is a good Christian spouse, right? And one that believes in what we're talking about, saving, putting away for the future, making you better, right? Together. I think it's so important. Anyways, getting back to budgeting. You can see it here on the screen. I can tell you, one of the things that's very dangerous about budgeting, okay, and I'm going to give you a little fair warning. The budget is your guideline. It is not a Bible. I've had this happen where people put a budget and sorry, that's the budget. Can't budge from it, right? Pun intended. It's very important that it be a fluid thing too, is that the budget's the guidelines so you can stick, if you can stick to it, you know things are going to go well. But you have to understand that if, you know, I'll give you an example. Your wife comes home and the budget's 150 for groceries and she needs to spend 170. Do you tell her no? Or do you tell her, hey, we'll find it somewhere else in the budget? Okay. Now, if she does that every single time, might want to change the budget, right? So in other words, the budget is a guideline. It should help you. It should uplift you to seeing where the money's going and able to control it a little better. It should not be your Bible. The Bible is the Bible, right? I do see that from time to time where people stick to that budget so hard. So like the joy goes out of them to some extent, right? Because part of being a prudent financial steward is faith, right? So with faith, we can tell that sometimes things are going to go out of whack. But if you have faith, you get back on track and get going again. It's okay. You're never going to put a budget together that's perfect. I'm telling you right now, don't even try. I've done it before. Oh, this is going to be perfect. I'm going to have this, I'm going to have this, and this is going to be great. I'm going to pay the bills, and our credit cards are going to go down. bam, something happens the very next week. It goes out of whack, right? Turns out the kid needs to play soccer this year. So, right? Now we have to make some changes. So in other words, a budget's a fluid thing. You can change it around, you can move it around. I know that there's only so much income, so you got to agree on that. But as a couple or individual, you can fluctuate. There's things in there that you can move around, and that's okay. You know, if you budgeted, say, $100 a month for clothing, and all of a sudden you need a little bit more for baby diapers, kind of clothing, right? They're plastic now. They're not cloth, like when I was a kid. So in other words, don't let the budget rule you so hard that you don't have the flexibility to work with your partner to move things around a little bit, right? Sometimes we just have to. Sometimes the budget's okay to move around and such, right? Now, one of the things that this budget thing shows is that we have percentages up here, right? Those are just guidelines. I have that on file. I didn't bring it, but I do have a budget sheet where you can actually do your own budget. It also has guidelines. I also have a sheet that has guidelines. And what's nice about it is I've got, believe it or not, Crown Ministries does this. They have guidelines for single people, for a family of one, for a family of four. It has spouse and wife. So there's actually different percentages for each one of those. And I do have those. I'll try to bring them next week. Yeah. Tracy will bring them next week, she says. And obviously, before we got too far on the budget too, it's very important that you do focus on getting any debt out of the way, obviously, because that'll hold you back for a long time. But that's kind of the subject for next week. So good stewardship begins. Let me do this. Show me how to do this. So good stewardship begins with what we have now, right? Not what we have in the future. So if you remember the parable of the talents, did the good stewardship start after he came back and they had two instead of one? Or was it when they had the two to begin with? That's when the stewardship started, right? Here's 2 talents for you, here's 5 talents for you, and here's 1 talent, right? Stewardship starts with what we get. That's why first fruits, right? Tithe first. That starts the stewardship, and the next step is savings. So let's look at 1 Matthew 25, 1 through 14. Let's see if we can get through these. Matthew 25, 14 to 30, and Luke 19, 11 through 27, finishing with verse 26. And shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins and the 5 of them were wise and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil in their vessels with their lamps. While the bridegroom tarried, they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go to meet him. And all those virgins arose and turned their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us your oils, for our lamps are gone out. But the wise answered, saying, No, not so, lest there be not enough for us and you. But go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourself. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage. The door was shut. So, and then I think we go further here. Afterwards came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open us to us. But he answered and said, Verily I say unto you, I know you not. Watch therefore, for you know neither the day nor the hour when the Son of Man cometh. So what's he talking about there? He's saying, look, if you're not prepared, it's going to be taken away from you, right? But here's the thing. No matter how much we prepare financially, if we don't prepare here, none of it matters. I've stated before that I manage money for wealthy clients, right? I got to tell you, there's a lot of my clients that are very, very wealthy that are miserable. You would never think so, right? We have to be prepared when the Lord cometh. You have to have this first right with the Lord. If you commit to the Lord, commit your heart to the Lord, commit your finances to the Lord, that's when we become faithful stewards. Because it's almost impossible on our own. Can people be rich in this world financially? I said earlier, there's financial loss. Yes, you can. But are you really rich if you have $10 zillion and don't have the Lord in your heart? I don't think so. You could be the richest man in the world, and the day that you're called, is the Lord going to say, are you a good, faithful steward? Or is he going to say, like he said here, I don't even know you? I don't know about you, but that's the last thing I want to hear from the Lord when I meet him, right? So take budgeting at heart. Understand that's important. Put some money away. We'll talk about down the road as to what else you can do with it once it grows. You have enough to do something more than just 3 months of emergency. We can talk about that. But let's look at Luke 19. Mhm. It's
Jose,
basically,
you're
it's very,
getting out of focus or something, and we're not hearing what you're saying. You're
oh, sorry.
moving over to one side.
Yeah, sorry. I was reading the Bible on the side. Sorry about that, G. Let me see. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, but when
Okay.
you move over too far, we can't.
Okay. I'll try to stay right here. That really squashes my thing,
I'm sorry.
It's fine. We'll put it right here. So, so in this story is the one about the cities that we talked about earlier. It's pretty long, so I won't read it that long. I wanted to read verse 26, so 25. And they said unto him, Lord, he hath 10 pounds. For I say unto you, that unto every one which hath shall be given, and from him that hath not, even that he shall be taken away from him. Well, that's pretty harsh, don't you think? In other words, in this story, he had given to one 10 pounds, and he took away the other guy's 10 pounds, and it was pounds meaning money. And he gave it to the guy who had the 10 pounds already, right? And the guys are saying, wait a minute, this guy's already got money. Why are you taking it away? Well, he said it right there, right? Because he wasn't a good steward. He didn't use his finances to glorify the Lord. And this guy's the king that was trying to build cities, actually conquered cities, is the way the story goes, right? So the question for you is, if we are not good stewards with what we have, how can the Lord bless us with more? Have you ever asked yourself that? How about this one? Well, if I won the lottery, then I'd give 20% to the Lord, right? Let me tell you, first of all, if you win the lottery, which is absolutely nearly impossible, but if you ain't giving money to the Lord now, you ain't going to give the money to the Lord then, right? I know this because, again, in my client pool, there's lots of clients that are very giving, and they give to charities, they give to their church. I have other clients that give. What, are you crazy? I worked hard for this money. I'm not giving it to anybody, right? We'll talk about giving later on. So if we are not good stewards with what we have, how can the Lord bless us with more? Question for you, look at yourself. Where is it all going? It's a hard question. When Tracy and I first started our study many years ago, when we started understanding what the Lord wanted us to do with the money, that's a hard question. Especially when you really look at it. Ugh, wow, I'm going out to eat 15 times a week. Not good, right? Or do I really need those expensive suits? No. By the way, my suits are expensive. But that's a thing. Now, don't get me wrong. One of the things that I do hear sometimes is that, well, then, That means you can't have nice stuff, right? That's not what we're getting at. The Bible is very clear that being wealthy isn't necessarily being unfaithful, right? I mean, there was king after king after king in the Old Testament that was wealthy, that was faithful to the Lord, right? There was many kings that weren't, but there were many that were, right? So wealth in itself is not a thing. In fact, the Bible says it's the love of money that's the root of evil, not money itself, right? Because if you think about it, money is just an intangible. It's just something that we use here on earth to purchase goods. But it's not evil. I know in my family, they think rich people are evil. Oh, I hang out with that guy. He's a rich guy. I know he's got something with the devil. I know it. That's why he's rich. No, not at all. That's not what the Bible. I don't see it in the Bible that way. If you can show me otherwise, I'd gladly like to see it. But going back to what we talked about. If we are not good stewards with the little that we have, how will the Lord will not bless us with more? He gives us more to increase his kingdom. Where is your heart today? You see, the Lord, one of the things that a lot of people misunderstand too is that when I say he will give you more, does he give you more so you can have a new car? Do you have a bigger house? No. The reason he trusts us with more is because we're trusting it to glorify him, right? If we're using faithfully, if we're a faithful steward, we're tithing, we're saving, and we're using our money for the Lord's glory. How do you do that? By having your heart right with him first. In everything you do. I'll tell you right now, you can listen to me, you can follow the rules, and believe me, over time, you'll create wealth. But no wealth is worth it without your heart being the Lord's first. Period. Period. Tithe, save, but if the Lord's not there, what's it for? I don't know about you guys, but I want him to say, good and faithful steward, servant. That's what we are, right? His servants. So I'd like to close tonight with that. Where's your heart? Are you being a good steward? Look at your budget. Find out. Find out where your money's going. I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll be very surprised. I know we were when we did it, right? And that's it. That's for tonight. The other thing I would say is that I apologize because I didn't bring the budget sheets. My spouse didn't pick them up for me. No, she's great, and I messed up. I didn't bring them, but I do have them. They're nicer. I do have some from the last time I did it back there, but they're not as good as the new ones. If you want to email me, I can email them to you because I do have them where you can fill them out online. You know, you can fill it out. It's a PDF that's fillable. My email is jpdallas2003@yahoo.com. It's in the bulletin. It's in the church. You could, or if you can just email me and I'll get it to you. So if you want it before next week, just email me. I'll get it. I'll send it out to you. And what's nice about it, like I said, you can fill it up online and you can start with that. And then also I have the sheets that show the percentages of what you should probably be spending. Now, mind you, on all those, if it says, 25%, for instance, for housing, or 35%, I think is what it says. This isn't working. There you go. So you can see right here where it says 35% for that, savings 5 to 10%, personal discretionary debt payments. Those are recommended averages. Your budget should have all those things in it, but the percentages should be agreed upon as a couple, or as an individual, you can move them around as you feel necessary. So, any questions? I'll give you we have about 5 minutes. Come on, you guys have to have some questions, especially when it comes to budgeting. Yes, you can have an extra latte if you say for it. No questions? I do. I think you have to multiply the 4. Hey, we were 7 also, so yeah, raised 5 kids. Right. So yeah, I do have a sheet says 4, I think is the maximum, but I think you just multiply those, multiply that out. Yeah. Question, go ahead. Mhm. That's a great question. I've been on commission work since 1990. That means I've never had a W-2 income since 1990. Yeah, my income is like this, right? Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So in the budgeting, it'll ask you to do monthly and then annual. Most people do monthly, but in your situation, what you want to do is you want to annualize what you've made over the last 12 months. And if you think it's pretty close to that, you annualize it going forward, and that's how you do your budgeting. In other words, if you say my average is 3,000 a month, for example, right? In 1 month you get 2,000, and 1 month you get 4,000. If you average it out, you should be able to, when you get the 4,000, know that it has to be saved for when you get 2, right? So here's another one. Up until 2 years ago, I only got paid every 3 months. How about that? Try raising 5 kids that way. Yeah, yeah. So when I talk to you about budgeting, when I tell you I hate it, and I despise it, I do it. Believe me, I lived it. I mean, literally a paycheck every 3 months. It wasn't once a month. Yeah, yeah, right. Mhm. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's why it's so important to save, because things like that come up, right? So if you have a savings of 3 months, for example, of your normal income, that's 1,000 becomes a lot easier to deal with than not having it. So it really is important to save, and it's important to save even a little bit every single month or every single paycheck. One last thing, I get this a lot. Well, what do I do if I get a raise? What should I do with it? What do you think? Here's what I tell all my clients and people that ask me that. If you, let's say you get a raise, $5,000 a year, right? I say half of it, put it in the budget, spend it how you want. The other half, put it in the savings, don't touch it. You didn't have it to begin with, so it's half, not 10%, half. You do that, you're going to have success, right? Because really, think about it this way: you didn't have that money at all. Now all of a sudden you get an extra 5,000 a year, 1,000 a month, whatever that number is. If it's only half of that, it's the half that you never saw before. So it's an easy way to put money away and save it. It's a great way to ramp up your savings plan, right? We'll talk more about 401ks and debt next week, a little bit of that. So if there's no other questions, I'll close this with prayer. Is that okay? All right. Amen. Thank you, Fred. All right, everyone. Any questions from the Zoom?